So I wanted to talk briefly today about a case that I've been following going back to 2022. And it's a case involving a father and son team. Pablo and Shane Camus out of Florida were arrested and charged with a $25 million Medicare fraud. So charged with healthcare fraud involving kickbacks to doctors. So they pled guilty back in 2022, shortly after being arrested. And they had sentencing guidelines of 97 to 121 months, which put them at a level 30 on the sentencing guideline table. So facing really big sentences. So this is back in 2022. They just got sentenced a couple of months ago to 78 months in prison was Pablo, and Shane at 60 months. So about maybe an 18% departure and a 30% departure, which are good numbers. So it leads me to believe if it was a couple of years before their sentencing that they had some cooperation in place. And when I read the transcripts on their sentencing, it said that they don't have to report to prison until December, which leads me to believe that there potentially more cooperation. Maybe they can get a Rule 35 and benefit themselves some more. But what I just wanted to talk about was, when you are arrested for these federal crimes, in most cases, probation is not an option. In healthcare fraud, especially in Florida, probation is really not an option. I think when you're looking at these types of cases, you really need to do everything you can to position yourself to be put in a place to be considered for the lowest possible sentence. Now, I'm not sure what type of mitigation work this father and son team did. They got a decent departure from their guidelines, but speaking from my own experience, pled guilty in 2014 to securities fraud, conspiracy, and wire fraud. I had sentencing guidelines of 78 to 97 months. And I can tell you that my case was a full-time job. I wasn't really doing a whole lot of work. I was getting into a new industry. I was getting out of penny stocks, but I was working on my case every day, most of the day, from cooperation to putting together the resources I needed to make full restitution before sentencing. I did thousands upon thousands of hours of community service. I got involved with different personal development programs to put together a package where I could show the judge that if the judge were to be open to giving me some sort of departure, that I was doing things to better myself where I wouldn't be returning to my old ways and returning to penny stocks. I was getting a new job, a new career, going into a new business. So I was constantly working on my case, constantly doing things to position myself to be considered for the lowest possible sentence. And it worked out for me. I got a sentence from guidelines of 78 to 97 months to 1 year of home confinement. My attorney tells me it's one of the largest departures in the history of the Economics Crimes Unit at the U.S. Attorney's Office in Boston. So I did well, but I worked really hard. I really worked hard at changing my life and putting myself in a position to get a good sentence and then to move forward to do things to make sure that I wasn't going to put myself in that position again. So when I look at these two guys, they did well, 78 months and 60 months, down from 97 to 121. So with different types of programs in prison, they'll get home earlier than what was initially anticipated. But I think it makes sense to talk about the risks involved in these federal cases, particularly healthcare fraud, particularly in Florida. That if you've been charged in one of these cases, you need to do everything that you can with potential cooperation, with restitution, with a massive sentence mitigation program to position yourself to be considered for the lowest possible sentence. Because with healthcare fraud, many times these numbers are off the charts. Many times with a conspiracy, you're getting charged with the amount that you submitted to Medicare, not actually the amount of money that you collected. So you may have submitted, 25, 30, $40 million in claims and gotten $4 or $5 million back. On a conspiracy, the amount of money that you submitted is going to be your number for the sentencing guidelines. And, you're typically looking at, 10, 12, 15 years on the guidelines. So you need to do everything you can. So, if you've been arrested or charged with healthcare fraud and you're looking for what options might be available to help you be considered for the lowest possible sentence, feel free to send me a direct message. Happy to have a consult with you, no obligation consult, and discuss what I've seen some of my clients do to help them be considered for a lower sentence.